सीधा नवाबों के दौर से चला रहा है।
ऑलरेडी इमेजिनिंग इट।
फिर सोचो एक आदिवासी लीडर जो एक पूरी एम्पायर के सामने आजादी के लिए खड़ा हो गया। और फिर सोचो एक ऐसा शब्द स्वराज जिसने पूरे देश की किस्मत बदल दी।
तीन बिल्कुल अलग अलग दुनियाएं लग रही हैं।
लग रही है पर है नहीं। अब इन तीनों में क्या कॉमन है? ये सिर्फ हिस्ट्री के फैक्ट्स नहीं है दोस्त, ये वो थ्रेड्स हैं जिन्होंने मॉडर्न इंडिया के फैब्रिक को बुना है।
हाँ, और ये थ्रेड्स आज भी उतने ही रेलेवेंट है।
एग्जैक्टली आज हम इन्हीं थ्रेड्स को एक एक करके सुलझाने वाले हैं, इनकी पूरी गहराई में उतरेंगे। तो आगे बढ़ने से पहले एक छोटा सा काम कर दो।
हाँ प्लीज डू।
मेक श्योर यू हिट दैट सब्सक्राइब बटन, लाइक दिस सेशन, और हाँ, नोटिफिकेशन बेल ऑन करना मत भूलना। सीरियसली, यू डोंट वांट टू मिस अ सिंगल डिटेल टुडे।
बिल्कुल सही कहा, आज का सफर बहुत ही एक्साइटिंग होने वाला है। हमारा लर्निंग मैप बिल्कुल क्लियर है।
ओके, सो व्हाट्स द प्लान?
सबसे पहले हम टेस्ट करेंगे लखनऊ की सक्सेस स्टोरी, जिसे यूनेस्को से एक मैसिव रिकॉग्निशन मिला है।
ओके, फूड फर्स्ट, आई लाइक इट।
वहां से हम चलेंगे झारखंड के फॉरेस्ट्स में टू अंडरस्टैंड द लेगेसी ऑफ अ ट्रू हीरो भगवान बिरसा मुंडा।
एन इनक्रेडिबल स्टोरी ऑफ करेज।
उसके बाद हम टाइम ट्रैवल करेंगे 150 साल पीछे टू एक्सप्लोर द रेवोल्यूशनरी इम्पैक्ट ऑफ आर्य समाज एंड इट्स फाउंडर दयानंद सरस्वती।
फ्रॉम सोशल रिफॉर्म
टू पॉलिटिकल कंसोलिडेशन। एंड फाइनली हम उस इंसान की बात करेंगे जिसने इंडिया के मैप को एक किया, द आयरन मैन ऑफ इंडिया, सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल,
द आर्किटेक्ट ऑफ मॉडर्न इंडिया।
और एंड में वी हैव सम क्विक फायर करंट अफेयर्स जो आपके नॉलेज को एकदम अपडेट कर देंगे। सो लेट्स बिगिन दिस जर्नी दोस्त।
Alright, let's dive straight into our first topic, a story of flavor and fame. Broad micro-theme, culture and legacy. Shaping modern India. Okay, so let's start with the definition. Basically, UNESCO ने लखनऊ को उसके incredible food culture यानी gastronomy के लिए a creative city का टैग दिया है।
हाँ, एंड ये कोई छोटा मोटा अवार्ड नहीं है। दिस इज अ ह्यूज ग्लोबल रिकॉग्निशन।
Right. हैदराबाद के बाद लखनऊ is now the second Indian city to get this honor. कितनी cool बात है ना?
इट इज। और इसका रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल सोचो। इमेजिन करो तुम्हारे शहर का स्ट्रीट फूड या स्पेशल डिश इतनी फेमस हो जाए कि लोग दुनिया भर से सिर्फ उसे चखने के लिए आ रहे हैं।
International food bloggers तुम्हारे शहर की गलियों में घूम रहे हैं?
Exactly. This tag does exactly that. It puts Lucknow on the world food map, not just as a tourist spot, but as a culinary destination.
तो चलो इसकी पूरी कहानी समझते हैं। Let's get into the content discussion. इसकी शुरुआत कैसे हुई? What's the introduction here?
So the big news is that Lucknow is now officially a creative city of gastronomy as of 2025. This is a massive deal for its cultural and economic landscape.
Okay, but इसके पीछे की हिस्ट्री क्या है? What's the background?
तो ये कहानी शुरू होती है 1775 में, जब नवाब आसफुद्दौला ने अवध की कैपिटल को फैजाबाद से लखनऊ शिफ्ट किया। बस उस एक डिसीजन ने इस शहर की तकदीर बदल दी।
Really? Just one decision?
हाँ, the city became a hub of culture, earning nicknames like Shirazi-e-Hind and the Constantinople of the East. It was the center of poetry, music, fine arts, and of course, food.
Wow. इसीलिए इसे the Golden City of India भी कहते हैं, for its sheer refinement and sophistication.
Exactly.
Wow. Shirazi Hind. That's a powerful title. तो इसके core logic में क्या है? What makes Lucknow's food so special?
The core logic lies in its royal patronage and a specific cooking technique. नवाबों के अंडर बावर्ची और रकाबदार ये आम शेफ्स नहीं थे, they were culinary artists.
अच्छा।
इन्होंने दमपुख्त टेक्निक को परफेक्ट किया। दमपुख्त is the art of slow cooking in a sealed pot, जो फूड के सारे juices और flavors को लॉक कर देता
तो
है।
इससे होता क्या है?
इससे आम ingredients भी extraordinary बन जाते हैं। Dishes like गलौटी कबाब, ककोरी कबाब, कोरमास, बिरयानी, and even breads like शीरमल और desserts like शाही टुकड़ा, ये सब इसी ट्रेडिशन से निकले हैं।
Incredible. But here's the key. Lucknow's strength isn't just food. उसके पास tangible और intangible दोनों तरह के assets हैं।
Tangible and intangible assets.
Yeah, okay. Break that down for us.
Sure. Tangible assets वो हैं जिन्हें आप देख और छू सकते हैं, जैसे बड़ा इमामबाड़ा, छोटा इमामबाड़ा, रूमी दरवाजा और भूल भुलैया।
The architecture.
Yes. नवाबी आर्किटेक्चर के यूनिक फीचर्स जैसे अ फिश मोटिफ, छत्तर और बारादरी, ये सब इसके टैंजिबल हेरिटेज हैं।
Okay. And intangible?
ऑन द अदर हैंड इंटैंजिबल एसेट्स वो हैं जिन्हें आप महसूस करते हैं, एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं। इसमें आती है लखनवी क्विजीन, उर्दू शायरी, द ग्रेसफुल कथक डांस एंड द डेलिकेट चिकनकारी एम्ब्रॉयडरी।
Wow.
ये सारी चीजें मिलकर लखनऊ की यूनिक आइडेंटिटी बनाती हैं।
This is incredible. ये सिर्फ खाने की बात नहीं है. This is about a whole cultural ecosystem.
ये यूएनएस्को क्रिएटिव सिटीज नेटवर्क या यूसीसीएन ये है क्या एग्जैक्टली?
Excellent question. The UCCN is a flagship UNESCO city program started back in 2004. इसका main objective सिर्फ heritage को preserve करना नहीं है.
बल्कि कल्चर और क्रिएटिविटी को अर्बन डेवलपमेंट के सेंटर में लाना है। एग्जैक्टली। बेसिकली शहर की प्लानिंग में आर्ट, कल्चर और हेरिटेज को प्रायोरिटी देना। This vision aligns perfectly with the UN Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is about making cities safe, inclusive, resilient and sustainable.
और इसका application process कैसा होता है?
काफी स्ट्रक्चर्ड है। स्टेट का डायरेक्टरेट ऑफ टूरिज्म शहर को नॉमिनेट करता है, फिर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कल्चर उसे देश की ऑफिशियल एंट्री के तौर पे चुनती है एंड देन इट गोज टू यूनेस्को।
So it's a multi-step comparative process. इसमें food के अलावा और कौन सी fields हैं?
यूसीसीएन में टोटल 8 क्रिएटिव फील्ड्स हैं: आर्किटेक्चर, क्राफ्ट्स एंड फोक आर्ट, डिजाइन, फिल्म, गैस्ट्रोनॉमी, लिटरेचर, म्यूजिक एंड मीडिया आर्ट्स। और इंडिया के पास अब एक इंप्रेसिव लिस्ट है।
Absolutely.
We have Srinagar and Jaipur for crafts and folk arts, Mumbai for film, Varanasi, Chennai and Gwalior for music, Hyderabad for gastronomy, Kozhikode for literature, and now Lucknow for gastronomy too.
That's a fantastic network. तो इस टैग का रियल वर्ल्ड इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा लखनऊ के लिए? What changes on the ground?
The real world impact is huge. Pehla, it boosts culinary tourism globally. Second, it provides better training and market access for local vendors and small food entrepreneurs.
Imagine, छोटे से छोटे कबाब वाले को भी इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स की ट्रेनिंग मिल रही है.
सही बात है. Third, it will help in developing dedicated food-led tourism circuits. So in short, more jobs, more investment and a stronger local economy.
So, the conclusion is simple.
हाँ, ये अवार्ड सिर्फ टुंडे कबाबी या दस्तरखान के लिए नहीं है. ये लखनऊ की पूरी कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी का जश्न है, फ्रॉम इट्स आर्किटेक्चर टू इट्स आर्ट फॉर्म्स. फैंटास्टिक एक्सप्लेनेशन. चलो अब थोड़ा क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग करते हैं टू मेक श्योर ये सब लॉक हो जाए. माय फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, ये UCCN का अल्टीमेट गोल क्या है? इज इट जस्ट अबाउट प्रमोटिंग फूड और इज देयर अ बिगर पिक्चर?
Great question to start with. The bigger picture is to integrate culture and creativity into urban planning. The goal is to make cities more livable, sustainable, and inclusive. Food or gastronomy is just one of the tools to achieve that broader vision.
गॉट इट. ओके, तुमने एक स्लो कुकिंग टेक्निक का जिक्र किया था जो अवधी क्विजीन की जान है. व्हाट वाज इट कॉल्ड अगेन एंड व्हाट मेक्स इट सो स्पेशल? उसे दम पुख्त कहते हैं. याद रखना, DUMPUKHT. It's special because by sealing the pot, it cooks the food in its own juices, which intensifies the flavor and makes the meat incredibly tender. It's science and art combined.
Damport, locked. Now, on the UNESCO Cities map of India, Jaipur को किस field में recognition मिला है and which year?
Jaipur was designated as a creative city of crafts and folk arts back in 2015. It was one of the early Indian cities to get this tag.
So, if a city has a great food culture, can it just apply to UNESCO on its own? Is the process that simple?
Not at all. The process is very formal and government-led. The State Tourism Directorate has to nominate the city. Then it has to be chosen by the National Ministry of Culture to be India's official entry. So there's a national competition before the international one.
Makes sense. My last question. लखनऊ को शिराज़े-हिंद क्यों कहा जाता था? What's the connection?
Because just like the famous ancient Persian city of Shiraz, which was a global center for poetry and fine arts, Lucknow under the Nawabs became the undisputed hub of poetry, music and culture in India. It was a comparison of its cultural richness.
Perfect. Now pause and practice saying this part aloud. Lucknow is India's second UNESCO Creative City of Gastronomy, recognized for its royal Awadhi cuisine and the unique dum-pukt slow cooking technique. Practice.
So in short, लखनऊ की नवाबी विरासत, खास तौर पर उनका जायकेदार खाना अब एक ग्लोबल ब्रांड बन गया है.
From the taste of royalty to a story of rebellion, लखनऊ की कहानी से ये तो साफ है कि कल्चर को जिंदा रखना कितना जरूरी है.
बिल्कुल.
लेकिन तब क्या होता है जब उसी कल्चर उसी जमीन पर बाहर से खतरा मंडराने लगे? यही सवाल हमें ले जाता है छोटा नागपुर के घने जंगलों में एक ऐसी हीरो की कहानी सुनने जिसने इतिहास बदल दिया. ब्रॉड माइक्रो थीम, कल्चर एंड लेगेसी, शेपिंग मॉडर्न इंडिया. So, who was Bhagwan Birsa Munda? The simplest definition is this. He was a tribal freedom fighter, a prophet, and a folk hero who led a major rebellion, the Ulgulan or the Great Tumult, against the British colonial government in the late 19th century.
Absolutely.
और एक real life analogy से समझो. Think of him as the Captain America for his tribe.
Oh, I like that analogy. एक ऐसा लीडर जिसने ना सिर्फ अंग्रेजों से लोहा लिया, बल्कि अपने ही समाज में social reforms लाने की कोशिश की. He fought against superstition, alcoholism, and the influence of Christian missionaries. So he was a freedom fighter and a social reformer, all rolled into one. A true visionary.
Let's get into the content discussion. इसकी immediate relevance क्या है? Why are we talking about him now?
The introduction and context is very current. हाल ही में the nation observed Janjati Gaurav Divas on his 150th birth anniversary. So his life and legacy are being discussed across the country.
Okay, and his background?
For the background, he was born in 1875 in a small village called Ulihatu in Jharkhand. He belonged to the Munda tribe of the Chota Nagpur Pathar region, an area rich in forests and mineral resources, but also a place of immense exploitation.
Right.
Now for the core logic of his movement. Let's break it down. First, his teachings and beliefs. उन्होंने बिरसाइत नाम का एक नया faith शुरू किया.
Birsait? What was that about?
It preached monotheism, a belief in one god, and encouraged his followers to return to their traditional tribal roots, but in a reformed way. He stressed on cleanliness, hard work, and giving up alcohol.
So he was giving his people a new code of conduct, a new identity to be proud of.
Precisely. Second, his colonial resistance. This culminated in the Ulgulan, the Great Tumult, in 1899.
And his slogan was very powerful, right?
हाँ, उनका नारा था अबुआ राज सेतर जाना, महारानी राज टुंडो जाना, which means let the kingdom of the queen be ended and our kingdom be established. It was a direct challenge to the British Empire. A direct challenge.
So what were the root causes of this massive rebellion?
There were three main causes. First, the Permanent Settlement Act of 1793. इस कानून ने उनके ट्रेडिशनल खुटकट्टी सिस्टम को खत्म कर दिया.
Khundkati system, what was that?
The Khundkati system was a system of joint land holding by the clan. जमीन किसी एक की नहीं, पूरे कबीले की होती थी. The British destroyed this.
Okay, that's a big one. What was the second cause?
Second, there was a breakdown of their traditional systems of justice. Colonial courts replaced their traditional clan councils.
And the third?
Third, and most importantly, massive economic exploitation through begari, forced labor, and by moneylenders and zamindars, जिन्हें वो दिक्कुमो कहते थे.
Yes, so the objectives of the rebellion were pretty clear, I assume.
Crystal clear. The objectives were 1. To overthrow British rule. 2. To drive out the Dikkus, the outsiders. 3. To restore their ancestral Khunkatti system. And 4. To establish an independent Birsa Raj with him as its head. A fight for political, economic and cultural independence.
Yes, this is a powerful story of resistance. What was the real-world impact or the outcome of this revolt? Did it succeed?
That's the most crucial part. While the revolt was brutally crushed and Birsa Munda was captured, its impact was historic.
How so?
The first outcome was a reduction in the forced labor system. But the biggest outcome, the living legacy, was the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908.
The Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act.
This landmark law restricted the transfer of tribal land to non-tribals. Samjhe?
This law is still in effect today, over a century later, protecting tribal land rights.
Wow. That is a massive impact.
Tragically, Birsa Munda died in Ranchi jail in 1900 at the young age of 25 due to cholera. But his legacy is immeasurable.
He is revered as Bhagwan, God, and was given the title Dharti Aba, Father of the Earth.
Yes. And now his birthday, November 15th, is celebrated as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas.
So the conclusion is, Birsa Munda was not just a rebel, he was a visionary leader who gave his community an identity, pride, and a legal shield that protects them even today.
What an incredible legacy. Okay, time for some cross-questioning to solidify these facts. First, can you explain the Khunkatti system again in one simple sentence?
Simply put, it was a system of communal land ownership, where the entire clan, not an individual, owned the land they cultivated. It was the foundation of their tribal economy and society.
Perfect. And the term Dikku, who were they and why were they a problem?
Dikku was the term the Munda tribe used for outsiders. This included moneylenders, zamindars, and contractors who came into their territory and exploited them economically, trapping them in debt and taking over their lands.
The Ulgulan led to a very important piece of legislation. What was it called and what is its single most important function?
It's called the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908. Its most important function is that it prohibits or severely restricts the sale or transfer of tribal land to non-tribals, thus protecting their ancestral domain.
Birsa Munda was given a very powerful title that means Father of the Earth. What was it in his native language?
He's called Dharti Aba. It's a title of immense respect, signifying that he was a protector of their land and their world.
And finally, the new faith he started, which emphasized belief in one God and social reforms, was called...
It was called Birsait. It was a way to unite his people under a common spiritual and social code, independent of outside influences.
Excellent. Now it's your turn. Pause and practice saying this. Bhagwan Birsa Munda, known as Dharti Aba, led the Ulgulan movement against the British and the Dikkus to protect the traditional Khunkatti land system, leading to the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908. Practice.
So in short, Birsa Munda, a young tribal leader, launched a rebellion so impactful that it resulted in a law that continues to protect tribal land rights a century later.
Exactly.
बिरसा मुंडा ने अपने समाज को बाहरी खतरों और अंदर की बुराइयों दोनों से बचाने की कोशिश की.
सही बात है. ऑलराइट. और समाज सुधार का यही पावरफुल आइडिया हमें एक और महान फिगर की याद दिलाता है, दयानंद सरस्वती, जिन्होंने आर्य समाज के जरिए पूरे हिंदू समाज को एक नई मॉडर्न दिशा देने की कोशिश की.
Broad micro theme: culture and legacy, shaping modern India. So, what exactly is Arya Samaj? Let's start with the simple definition. The Arya Samaj is a Hindu reform movement that was founded in 1875 by Maharshi Dayanand Saraswati.
राइट. एंड इसका मेन मिशन था वैदिक प्रिंसिपल्स को रिवाइव करना और हिंदू रिलीजन और सोसाइटी में चल रहे प्रॉब्लम्स को ठीक करना.
Okay, so reform movement.
दैट्स राइट. और इसके लिए आई हैव अ ग्रेट रियल लाइफ एनालॉजी.
Go on.
इसे ऐसे समझो जैसे कोई तुम्हारे कंप्यूटर के ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम को अपडेट कर रहा हो.
Oh, interesting.
The core system, the Vedas, is the same, but Dayanand Saraswati wanted to remove the bugs and viruses like superstitions, the caste system, and untouchability, and delete unnecessary apps like complicated rituals. The goal was to make it run better, faster, and more efficiently for the modern world.
Exactly.
That's a brilliant analogy. An OS update for religion. So let's jump into the content discussion. Why is this topic in the news right now? For context, the PM recently addressed the International Arya Summit 2025. This event marked two major milestones: the 200th birth anniversary of Dayanand Saraswati and 150 years of the Arya Samaj. So it's a very significant moment.
And its background.
For its background, the Arya Samaj was founded in Bombay, and its motto was Krunvanto Vishwa Mariam, which means make this world noble.
Make this world noble. I like that.
It was not about creating a new religion, but was a revivalist movement aimed at going back to the pure original teachings of the Vedas. So what were its key contributions? Let's go into the core logic. The contributions were vast and multifaceted. Let's break them down. First, religious reforms. It strongly promoted monotheistic Hinduism, belief in one formless god. It rejected idol worship, elaborate rituals, and the dominance of the priestly class. And they also started the Shuddhi ceremony.
हाँ, बहुत important. They started the Shuddhi or purification ceremony, which was for the reconversion of people who had converted from Hinduism to other faiths.
Okay. What about social reforms?
This was revolutionary. They raised their voice against untouchability and the rigid caste system even before Mahatma Gandhi made it a central issue.
Wow. And for women, third, emancipation of women. They were pioneers in women's education. They opened numerous schools and colleges for girls, like the Kanya Mahavidyalaya in Jalandhar, at a time when educating girls was a taboo, and their role in the national movement. This is often overlooked.
It is.
Fourth, its role in the national movement. They strongly promoted the use of the Hindi language, wearing khadi, and adopting Swadeshi. Many great freedom fighters, including Lala Lajpat Rai, Bhagat Singh, and Ram Prasad Bismil, were deeply inspired by the Arya Samaj's ideals of self-respect and nationalism.
That is a huge list of contributions. But I feel their biggest legacy is in education, right? Tell us more about that.
Absolutely. उनका education model काफी unique था. They established two different types of institutions.
Two types, yes. First, the DAV, Dayanand Anglo-Vedic schools. इनका model था to blend Vedic knowledge and Indian values with modern Western scientific education. Anglo for Western, Vedic for Indian.
The best of both worlds.
Correct. Second, they also set up Gurukuls, like the Gurukul Kangri in Haridwar, which focused purely on traditional Vedic teachings in a traditional setting. This dual approach was genius.
And you mentioned a case study in your notes, the Hyderabad Satyagraha. What was that about?
Yes, this is a fascinating piece of history. In 1938-39, the Arya Samaj launched a massive satyagraha against the oppressive rule of the Nizam of Hyderabad.
Why?
The Nizam was prohibiting them from propagating Vedic teachings. Thousands of Arya Samaj workers courted arrest. This movement was so significant that even Sardar Patel later acknowledged its role in weakening the Nizam's hold.
Wow. Now tell us a bit more about the founder, Dayanand Saraswati himself.
Dayanand Saraswati was a phenomenal figure. Born in 1824 in Gujarat, his real name was Mool Shankar. His guru was Swami Virjanand Saraswati.
And his mind-blowing contributions.
First, he was the first person to use the term Swaraj, or self-rule, way back in 1875. This was decades before the Indian National Congress adopted it as their goal.
Decades before.
Yes. Second, his famous call to the nation was Back to the Vedas. Third, his most famous book, Satyarth Prakash, was written in Hindi, not Sanskrit, to make it accessible to the common person.
So what's the real-world impact?
It's visible everywhere. The DAV network is one of the largest non-governmental education providers in India today. So in conclusion, the Arya Samaj was not just a religious movement, it was a socio-cultural revolution that played a massive role in shaping modern India.
Ready for some cross-questioning on this? First, Dayanand Saraswati's most famous and powerful slogan was,
Back to the Vedas. It was a call to reject the superstitions and rituals that had crept into the religion and return to the original, pure knowledge of the scriptures.
perfect. What was the purpose of the Shuddhi movement? Was it controversial?
The Shuddhi movement was a purification ceremony for the reconversion and reclamation of Hindus who had converted to other faiths. And yes, it was quite controversial at the time as it challenged the religious status quo and created social tensions.
You're right to add that context. Now, Arya Samaj started two different kinds of educational institutions. What was the core difference between them?
There were the DAV schools, which blended modern Western Anglo education with traditional Vedic values. And then there were the Gurukuls, which were purely traditional, focusing entirely on Vedic teachings.
Excellent. This is a great trigger fact, so listen carefully. Who is credited with being the first to use the term Swaraj and when?
That would be Dayanand Saraswati, way back in 1875.
Samjha.
This is decades before it became a political slogan for freedom fighters.
Exactly. And my final question, his famous book, Satyarth Prakash, was written in which language and why was that choice so significant?
He wrote it in Hindi. This was a very strategic and forward-thinking move because despite being a Gujarati and a great Sanskrit scholar, he chose Hindi to ensure his message of reform reached the maximum number of common people across North India.
Spot on. Okay, practice time. Pause and say this aloud. Arya Samaj, founded by Dayanand Saraswati, was a revivalist movement that promoted a back-to-the-Vedas philosophy, championed social reforms like women's education, and established the vast DAV school network.
Practice.
Right.
So in short, Arya Samaj was a powerful reform movement that acted as a cultural and educational catalyst for modern India, blending ancient wisdom with modern ideals.
So from social reform, we now move to political consolidation. From a man who reshaped a religion, we move to a man who reshaped a nation's map.
Let's talk about the architect of unified India, broad micro-theme, culture and legacy, shaping modern India.
So, who was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel? The definition is simple yet profound. He was India's first deputy prime minister and home minister.
Or he is primarily credited with the monumental task of unifying the country by integrating more than 560 princely states into the newly independent India.
Absolutely. And the best real-life analogy for him is to imagine a super glue for a broken country.
A superglue, I like that.
After the British left, India was a fractured map. There were hundreds of princely states, each with the option to join India, join Pakistan, or remain independent. It was a recipe for chaos.
And Sardar Patel was that superglue.
Exactly. He used diplomacy, persuasion, political pressure, and when absolutely necessary, military force to bring all these pieces together and create the single unified India we see on the map today.
A perfect analogy. Now let's get into the content discussion for this giant of a figure. The context for discussing him now is the recent tribute paid by the PM on his 150th birth anniversary.
And his birthday, October 31st, is now celebrated as Rashtriya Ekta Divas.
Yes, which shows his continuing relevance. For his background, he was born in 1875 in Nadyad, Gujarat. Ek interesting fact, his father had served in the army of Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi during the 1857 revolt. So the spirit of fighting for India was in his blood. By profession, he was a very successful lawyer.
He was.
So how did this lawyer become the Iron Man of India? Let's get into the core logic of his contributions. His journey was incredible. He rose from being the Sanitation Commissioner of Ahmedabad to becoming the Deputy Prime Minister of India. In the Constituent Assembly, he chaired crucial committees like the Provincial Constitution Committee.
So let's break down his key contributions into two phases.
Good idea. First, his role in the freedom struggle. His first major political involvement with Gandhi was the Kheda Satyagraha of 1918. But the turning point was the Bardoli Satyagraha in 1928.
This is where he became Sardar Patel.
Exactly. He led a massive farmers' protest against unjust taxes so successfully that the women of Bardoli gave him the title Sardar.
And the second phase?
Second, his role as the builder of modern India. This is his greatest legacy. The integration of over 560 princely states was a masterpiece of statecraft. He used a mix of diplomatic negotiations and firm administrative action. This is what truly earned him the title Iron Man.
Can you give us some specific case studies of this integration process?
Of course. The three most famous and challenging cases were Junagadh, Kashmir, and Hyderabad.
Let's start with Junagadh.
The Nawab wanted to join Pakistan, even though the population was overwhelmingly Hindu and the state had no geographical link with Pakistan. Patel enforced a blockade, and a plebiscite was held in 1948 where the people overwhelmingly voted to join India.
And Kashmir.
The Hindu king, Raja Hari Singh, initially wanted to remain independent. But when Pakistani tribal militias invaded, he signed the instrument of accession to India, and Indian troops were airlifted to defend Kashmir.
And finally, Hyderabad, the big one.
Yes, the Nizam of Hyderabad also wanted independence. After months of failed negotiations, Patel launched a swift military action in September 1948 called Operation Polo.
Operation Polo.
In just 5 days, the Nizam's forces surrendered and Hyderabad became part of India.
That's a famous one. What about his other contributions, beyond integrating states?
Another huge contribution was the creation of the All India Services. He was the architect of the Indian Administrative Service, IAS, and the Indian Police Service, IPS. He called these services the steel frame of India.
The steel frame of India. What a powerful phrase.
He believed that a strong, independent, and unified bureaucracy was essential to hold the country together. He also played a key role in promoting Gujarat's cooperative movements, which led to the formation of Amul.
So what is his ultimate real-world impact and legacy?
The real-world impact is, quite literally, the political map of India that we live in. The administrative services that run the country are his legacy. The very spirit of national unity is his legacy.
He was posthumously awarded the Bharat Ratna in 1991. The giant statue of unity is dedicated to him.
Yes, and initiatives like Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat embody his vision. In conclusion, when Sardar Patel passed away in 1950, he left behind the incredible legacy of being the consolidator of India.
Time for a quick quiz on the Iron Man. Sardar Patel got the title Sardar after which famous movement?
That was after the successful Bardoli Satyagraha in 1928. The women of Bardoli gave him the title, which means chief or leader.
Correct. What was the code name for the military action that led to the integration of Hyderabad into India?
It was Operation Polo, a very famous and decisive action that took just 5 days to complete.
Spot on. How's the complex issue of Junagadh finally resolved? Was it through force or diplomacy?
It was resolved through a plebiscite, which is a form of direct democracy. The people of Junagadh were given a choice and they voted to join India.
Excellent. What did Sardar Patel famously call the All India services like the IAS and IPS?
He called them the steel frame of India. He saw them as the structural support, the backbone that would hold the diverse country together.
Perfect. And finally, his birthday, October 31st, is celebrated every year as...
It is celebrated as Rashtriya Ekta Divas or National Unity Day to honor his greatest contribution, the unification of India. Last practice for our main topics. Pause and say this. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India, integrated over 560 princely states using diplomacy and decisive actions like Operation Polo and created the All India Services, calling them the steel frame of India. Practice. So in short, Sardar Patel's unyielding leadership and political genius forged a scattered collection of states into a single strong and unified Indian nation.
चलो अब आते हैं कुछ quick but very important updates पर. These are our news in shots. Ready?
Ready.
First up, a significant spiritual and historical milestone. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji.
Okay.
November 24, 2025 marks the 350th Shahidi Divas or martyrdom anniversary of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. He was the ninth of the 10 Sikh Gurus.
And he founded the city of Anandpur Sahib in Punjab.
Correct. He was honored with the title Hind Di Chadar, meaning the shield of India, because he sacrificed his life for the cause of religious freedom and universal brotherhood. A truly powerful legacy. Next up, some historic news from the world of sports. The ICC Women's Cricket World Cup. This is huge.
The Indian women's cricket team has won its first ever ODI World Cup title. They defeated a very strong South African team in a thrilling final.
And the tournament was hosted in India.
Yes, this 2025 edition was the 13th edition and it was proudly hosted right here in India. While this is India's first win, just for the record, Australia has won the title 7 times. But this year belongs to the women in blue.
What a victory. Moving on to cultural recognition, we have some new GI tags. First, we have the Ambaji marble from the Banaskantha district of Gujarat.
Exactly. A GI tag means the product has a specific quality because of its geographical origin, right?
Exactly.
The key feature of Ambaji marble is its brilliant, milky white color and its high durability. It's a premium quality marble.
Okay. And the second one?
Second, we have the Meerut bugle. This is a handcrafted brass wind instrument. The bugle has been a part of our military tradition since the late 19th century. The artisans of Meerut are famous for making these.
From local heritage to global recognition. For peace, our final shot is about the Indira Gandhi Peace Prize.
Who won it this year?
The prestigious Indira Gandhi Prize for Peace, Disarmament and Development for the year 2024 has been conferred upon Michelle Bachelet, the former president of Chile.
She was also a former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Yes, this award is given annually by the Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust to individuals or organizations who have done outstanding work in promoting international peace and development.
And that wraps up our short news section. 4 very important updates.
Outro. So, what an incredible journey it has been today. Let's do a quick recap.
Let's do it. Our broad micro theme for this session was Culture and Legacy, Shaping Modern India. We saw how different threads from our past have woven the India of today. To summarize our discussion, first, we saw how Lucknow's rich Nawabi cuisine, with its Dum Pukht technique, earned it a place on UNESCO's global stage.
Then, we delved into the story of Bhagwan Birsa Munda, whose Ulgulan against colonial exploitation led to the historic Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act.
After that, we explored the 150-year legacy of the Arya Samaj, a reform movement by Dayanand Saraswati that championed modern education and gave us the concept of Swaraj.
And finally, we revisited the life of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man whose political genius integrated over 560 princely states, creating the unified map of modern India.
Now, to help you imbibe this content, here are 6 content tropes for you. Thoda soch lo and try to answer them in your own words.
What is the main objective of the UNESCO Creative Cities Network, UCCN, beyond just giving a tag to a city like Lucknow?
What were the 3 main causes of the Munda Rebellion, and what was its single most important long-term outcome?
What were the 2 distinct types of educational institutions started by the Arya Samaj, and what was the core philosophy behind each?
In what 2 major ways did Dayanand Saraswati contribute to the early ideas of Indian nationalism, long before they became mainstream?
Compare and contrast Sardar Patel's strategy for integrating Junagadh and Hyderabad. What did these 2 cases show about his approach?
Name the 2 new GI tags we discussed and mention 1 key unique feature for each.
And here's a simple challenge for you to take this learning one step further.
What's the challenge?
Today we talked about 4 incredible historical figures: Birsa Munda, Dayanand Saraswati, Sardar Patel, and Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. Choose any one of them, just one, and prepare a 1-minute speech on what you believe was their single most important contribution to India.
Try recording it on your phone. It's a great way to build confidence and crystallize your thoughts.
So that was our deep exploration for today.
अगर आपको ये सफर पसंद आया और आपने कुछ नया सीखा, then do us a favor, चैनल को सब्सक्राइब जरूर करना, कमेंट सेक्शन में अपना फेवरेट फैक्ट या स्टोरी बताना, and please turn on that notification bell.
We will be back very soon with another session full of knowledge and insights. Tab tak, keep learning and stay curious.
Hello.